I had a client come to me and say, Andrew, this retail financial planning software I use told me to do 400,000 of Roth conversions. But I ended up recommending that he do nearly zero for a few years and less than half that throughout retirement. Why? Hey everyone, I'm Andrew. I'm a CFA charter holder and a CFP professional who spent the last several years helping ultra high net worth and high net worth investors with their complex financial lives. And what I do is I take the learnings from those thousands of iterations and I give them to you so that you can use them for your own life. I'm also the owner of Lever Wealth Management, which is the financial advisor for people who scare financial advisors. I thought this would be a good example today of the nuance that is required when doing high dollar Roth conversions and a few things to stay aware of. So hopefully this story gives you a bit of an understanding of a few things to look out for. This client had come to me and had run probably through multiple of the retail facing financial planning softwares, but one in particular, and he was blown away by how large of a dollar amount the planning software was saying he should do in Roth conversions. Now he had a very large IRA, north of $4 to $5 million. And so, I've heard some other people say that's a tax bomb or something like that, tax tornado. And he was looking at it and it was recommending through the 32% tax bracket each year for conversions. And as a reminder, with the Roth conversion, you can always convert IRA dollars to Roth, but you have to pay income tax. And the problem is once you bring dollars into the income tax world, it affects quite a few other things. The first of which is when you are under 65 years old and you leave your employer, you have to get your own health insurance. You can stay on COBRA for some period of time, but very few employers have retiree health insurance anymore. Some do, but very few do. And most of the time, people end up going to the ACA marketplace for that. Well, with that marketplace, there are tax credits. They are given to you throughout the year as a subsidy and based on your taxable income. So you estimate your taxable income at the beginning of the year. And at the end of the year, they true it up and you either get the full tax credit that you thought you would or none or some combination thereof. I've said this in other videos, but the removal of a tax credit is just an implicit tax. And for this individual, the implicit tax was nearly 35 to 40% for the first couple of years of retirement. And they were close enough to Medicare age that it made sense to depress their income and have lower deductibles, lower max out-of-pockets, lower health insurance premiums for the few years before Medicare. Number two, once you increase the dollar threshold of Roth conversions, you do a few things. If your taxable income's close to 600,000, you bump up into the 20% capital gains rate on the federal side instead of 15, and anything over 250,000 of taxable income, you hit the net investment income tax, which is a 3.8% Medicare surcharge on your capital gains as well. And this person had concentrated positions of stock that they were needing to divest of. And so over here, this software is saying, hey, do all of these Roth conversions, and over here, we're increasing not only the capital gains tax rate, but also the Medicare surcharge. And so that's an 8.8% tax rate that we are absorbing that we may not necessarily need to. Now, you may be thinking, Andrew, shouldn't financial planning softwares take this into account? And the answer is yes, they do, with some asterisks. Most of the time when people are inputting their data into financial planning software, you can toggle between allowing tax rates to stay where they are, to revert back to 2017, to increase, and they had toggled a 10% increase in taxes because they wanted to be conservative, which is reasonable. They'd also said, we're going to live to 100, which is conservative and reasonable. The problem is conservatism for one area of your retirement plan may be aggressive for another area of your retirement plan. And it was creating this false truth to a client with an output saying you should do all of these Roth conversions because we're assuming tax rates are going to go up and you're going to live to 100. Well, that very well may not be the case. It could be, but it might not be. And so a more pragmatic way to view Roth conversions is to say, year by year as you're doing it, what's the break-even rate for this year, given current tax rates, or if tax rates go up, or if tax rates go down? Now, it's probably unlikely they go down, but taking it year by year when you're actually doing it and not just talking about the theory of it is extremely helpful, because you can say age 83 on an after-tax basis is a break-even. I'm willing to take that bet this year. But if you're toggling some conservative approaches in the financial planning software for the retirement plan as a whole of saying, do I have enough money? That's very different than toggling what's conservative for Roth conversions. And so as we ran it through and said, okay, what if tax rates don't go up? And what if you end up wanting to give $25,000 a year from your required minimum distribution? Which they said after we discussed it, oh, absolutely, I would do that. If you're showing me I have this much of an excess at retirement, we would absolutely be willing to give $25,000 a year. That changes all of the math. If there's any charitable intent, assuming whenever you're going to die and assuming the tax rate in the financial planning software will change all of the math with Roth conversions. But people sometimes get trapped by being conservative with one approach on the holistic plan, but not being conservative on the Roth conversion approach. But what I will also add is there is a psychological struggle that most people have, even if the math is in their favor, of writing those very, very large checks to the government. And so it's important for us to take that into account and dive deep into the level of nuance that the plan deserves to understand within different scenarios and modeling. Does it make sense in all of the scenarios to do the Roth conversion? Because if the answer is yes, we know it's most likely a good decision. But if the answer is no, in 2 out of 3 or 3 out of 4, we have to take a much harder look at it, especially given the psychological pain of writing $100,000 checks to the IRS. So my encouragement for you is review your plan and understand the level of nuance in detail that you need to have in understanding conservatism for a financial plan of assuming higher spend rates, longer amount of time for needing the funds, increased tax rates. Those are great to build in for the financial plan. But whenever we're looking at Roth conversions, you need a different set of assumptions when you're wanting to look at it conservatively. And every once in a while, not toggling one of those buttons can completely change the output that you get. And that's dangerous. We need to understand the input and output dynamic, especially for scenario analysis. So take a look at your plan, understand why what's being recommended to you is being recommended to you before you convert hundreds of thousands of dollars that you didn't need to pay taxes on. Until next time, hope that's helpful. See y'all.